Manx Radio's update.
Well, my good evening and welcome to Update here on Manx Radio, a 30-minute snapshot of the Isle of Man. If there's something you need to know about happenings on the island, it'll be here in this show. On the way for you tonight, Manx Care has been subject to scrutiny by a Tynwald committee after senior bosses were called to face questions after a series of cuts were set out as the health body continues to try and come in on budget. A campaigner for dyslexia sufferers has thrown her name into the ring for potential seats on the Legislative Council. And we'll hear from FC Isle of Man after a draw with league leaders Bury was snatched out of their hands at the last minute. It's 5:01. Let's get the latest with Chanel Suku.
Manx Care's chief executive says she felt undermined by politicians over plans to cut some of its services. Last week, Ramsey MHK Laurie Hooper shared a recalled embargo document to his social media pages. Teresa Cope told the Public Accounts Committee it's not how she'd have chosen to communicate the cuts to services.
It did feel like we were damned if we do and damned if we don't. And that is a very uncomfortable position for us to be in.
A trade union has released the results of a ballot regarding the latest pay offer from the Public Services Commission. Unite has confirmed nearly 74% of members balloted rejected a 2-year deal for a 4% pay increase this year, followed by a 2.5% next year. And a yellow weather warning for frost and icy patches will come into force from 7 p.m. this evening until 10 a.m. tomorrow. Forecasters say temperatures are expected to reach below zero overnight, leading to frost and icy patches on untreated surfaces. As a result, the Department of Infrastructure says it will pre-salt a number of main roads this evening. In international news, the security ministers told MPs the Prevent programme's assessments of Southport killer Axel Rudakabana were closely premature. Dan Jarvis says that there was too much focus on the lack of ideology despite his history of violence. The UK, Spain and France have all rejected an idea from Donald Trump that the US own Gaza. The American president suggested that he could redevelop the Strip. And prison leaders say they'll change a bizarre rule that bans women from putting their underwear in washing machines. Female inmates at a number of jails are only allowed to hand wash them. Those are your headlines. News at 6.
Thank you, Chanel. Now, let's get a look at the weather brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. And as Chanel mentioned during those headlines there is a yellow weather warning in place. Ronaldsway Met Office says temperatures falling below zero this evening and overnight, leading to a frost developing in places, especially low-lying sheltered areas. Risk of icy patches on untreated surfaces, mainly in areas that are wet or damp. Winds settling southeasterly before dawn on Thursday and should allow temperatures to recover along the east and south coast. Let's look at the weather tomorrow, though. Dry with sunny spells after a cold start to the day. Frost in some places, light to moderate east-southeast winds and a top temperature of 8 degrees Celsius.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
Firestone Rubber Roof Shop for one-piece flat roofing systems. No joins, no leaks. We also line commercial box gutters in one piece up to 60 metres with a 20-year written warranty against leakage. Call Rubber Roof Shop on 49667.
A great night's sleep got even better with Zed's Bedding Store. From quality Beldorm bed linen and mattress protectors, fleece and woven throws to luxury duvets from the fine bedding company. Zed's Bedding Ramsey, next to Isle of Man Bank.
For a wide range of wood-burning stoves and a complete installation service, visit The Snug in Ramsey. And we don't stop there. Kiln-dried firewood and full aftercare service, including chimney sweeps and maintenance. Call The Snug in Ramsey.
Many people are struggling. You can help by volunteering or making a donation to Isle of Man Food Bank, whether it be food or essential items or financial support. Please call 646 999, brought to you by Descon Office Interiors.
5:04 now, and let's start by taking a moment to get up to speed with where we're at with the health service cuts. Who knew what? Apologies, questions about why it happened in the way it did. And an MHK is calling for the Health and Social Care Minister to apologise to the Manx public, saying recent controversy around the healthcare cuts was more than just a communication lapse. Tim Glover, who represents Arbury, Castletown and Maloo, was one politician calling for more clarity over Manx Care's cost-cutting exercise in the House of Keys. Despite Claire Christian giving a detailed timeline of the events surrounding who knew what and when, it didn't save her from robust criticism. Let's listen back to the House of Keys first of all, and then we'll hear what Mr Glover had to say to John Moss.
I haven't heard much humility here. We had an information vacuum of well over 2 weeks where eventually we started to get wind of people being affected by this. Will the Minister apologise for that information vacuum and for the lack of leadership from her department and more widely from government?
I'm sorry if the Honourable Member thinks I haven't had humility today. I absolutely understand that the vacuum that he is talking about will have caused concern. I would have made a statement here last Tuesday which would have hopefully been a lot of this information. Well, it was. And then obviously at the time it was going to be transferred to a written. It wasn't till later in the day we understood that it wanted to be re-questioned today. The meeting with the Treasury Board was the following morning, and then it was announced on the Thursday last week what the proposals were going to be and the effect.
Tim Glover, you were critical of Mrs Christian in the way that she's handled this affair.
Well, she apologised for not being here to answer the urgent question the week before, but that was the only apology we got. We've had this press release that was put out. We've then had slowly patients getting in touch with MHKs, and we had absolutely silence from government and from the health department.
So what do you think she should have done?
She should have apologised for the upset this will have caused to some patients. Manx Radio, for example, ran a story about the lad that was wanting to get treatment. He'd been turned down. Then he had his hopes built up again, and at the last minute was let down again. This affected people's lives.
Are you critical of the way she's running this department then?
Not critical. I wish her all the very best, but I just think an apology should have been forthcoming from the department.
That would have
and
indicated she was wrong then.
Indeed, and I don't think anyone's doubting that. It's not been handled well. It's more than just a communication lapse. Even the Chief Minister, when he was interviewed by Manx Radio, the first thing he did was lash out at Mr Hooper, who'd actually leaked the press release. Well, we were in the dark. It was mushroom syndrome. That's not acceptable.
MHK Tim Glover talking to John Moss there. And let's fast forward to today, which was the first time politicians had the chance to put questions directly to Manx Care. And the health body's chief executive says she felt undermined by politicians over plans to cut some of its services. The healthcare provider has issued an embargoed press release, which was on the 15th of January, outlining the urgent measures, but was asked to delay the publication by the Department of Health and Social Care. Last week, Ramsey MHK Laurie Hooper shared the document to his social media pages. Theresa Cope has told the Public Accounts Committee it's not how she'd have chosen to communicate the cuts.
The Manx Care Board had to make some very difficult decisions on the 7th of January. The financial context of Manx Care has been well understood. We have been under immense pressure to come in and reduce our overspend position. Publicly, we have been criticised for our financial position, and we have two improvement directors, two very, very experienced improvement directors helping us, advising us, and with the very clear remit of reducing the in-year overspend as much as possible, whilst also doing that important piece of alignment planning for 25-26. These are not decisions that the Manx Care Board would want to take unilaterally, would want to take at all, and when they have to be taken, we would want to be able to manage those messages and those communications in a way which is as respectful and considered as possible, both to the clinical teams but also to the public. And they are operational decisions that we have made, impact assessed, which meets the requirements Manx Care was set to work within its budget or not overspend by a further 15 million. It did feel like we were damned if we do and damned if we don't. And that is a very uncomfortable position for us to be in, particularly when we have had so many detailed discussions since Pete and Sean joined. We are in meetings around the financial position, around what this means to the budget, several times a week. We are working really closely together. So yes, I think it is absolutely not what Manx Care, how it would wish to communicate some very difficult decisions it's had to make.
Manx Care's Chief Executive Teresa Cope there giving evidence to the Public Accounts Committee. 10 minutes past 5 now.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
Now, the Public Services Commission has been meeting today after a union confirmed its members have rejected its latest pay offer. Prospect is calling for an improved offer to be put forward. Sean Cowper has the details on this.
Prospect has notified the PSC that its members rejected the latest pay offer, which was a 4% pay rise for the current financial year and 2.5% increase for next year. Negotiations officer Mick Hewer says he's not surprised at the result and believes there are many factors that may have influenced the vote. He added, given the rejection, I have again reached out to the Commission and suggested that a 2-year offer matching that previously put on the table is reinstated. I am mindful, he says, of the present financial climate and would urge the Commission to settle this matter as swiftly as possible, and I would hope that we can meet as a matter of urgency and possibly by the end of this week or very early next week. Prospect has confirmed it wants to see a 2-year offer matching what was previously put on the table by the PSC, with a 4% rise for this year and 3% next year, along with harmonisation of annual leave. Mr Hewer says if this offer were put forward, he'd advise members they should consider accepting it. In response to Prospect's announcement, Isle of Man Government has confirmed the PSC has been meeting today to discuss the outcome of the ballots.
Sean Cowper there with that report. 12 minutes past 5 now, and the Enterprise Minister has been giving more details about the revised proposal for increasing the island's minimum wage. The original plan would have seen the rate rise from £11.45 per hour to £12.25 from the 1st of April, and then up again in October to £13.05. That would align it with the current living wage as per a Tynwald resolution in July 2021. But following concern from businesses on the island, the second planned uplift is to be put on hold while a review is carried out. Here's Minister Tim Johnston also speaking to Sean Cowper.
We need to look at how we calculate the minimum wage going forward, because at the moment what we do is we talk about parity with the living wage, but the way that living wage is calculated, we're unique in the way we do that, in the sense of using a basket of goods based on UK prices, which are then adjusted for the Isle of Man, rather than in other jurisdictions around us that use a percentage of median earnings. So what I want to do is go back to the Minimum Wage Committee, which is that independent body of represents employers and employees, working with us with Treasury and us in DFE, and sense check that going forward before we then decide how we then move forward. So the direction of travel is still set. There still will be increases coming forward, but I think it's important that we take that step now, and also recognising the challenges there are in the economy at the moment.
Just 3 weeks ago, though, you were committed to this idea of this second raise later in the year. What's changed in that time?
I think the main thing is we're listening to the economy, we're listening to the challenges. When we bring forward minimum wage increases, we always expect a certain amount of concern from certain sectors. I think it's fair to say that we have seen unprecedented concern on this occasion, and it'd be wrong for us not to recognise that and look again, taking into account, like I say, the way it's calculated against the living wage. The danger here is the living wage, the way we calculate it, it has been running ahead of inflation quite considerably since 2021. So I think that's why it's right we look at it and say, is that the fairest way of assessing the minimum wage going forward? Because looking at other methods may well be fairer, and I think we just need to give the opportunity for Tynwald to look at that and discuss it before moving forward with potentially a new calculation, but recognising we still need to move forward, and absolutely we need to make sure that low-paid workers are getting a fair return.
Enterprise Minister Tim Johnston speaking to Sean Cowper there, and the revised minimum wage proposal will be brought before Tynwald for approval during this month's sitting.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Couple of things to let you know about on the roads. Of course, we do have that incident earlier today, which was on the Switchback Road. Police were telling everyone to avoid the area. That was meant to be, the closure order was meant to be in place until no later than 4:30. We haven't heard anything since, so as far as we know, it's still closed. Elsewhere, Douglas tonight and also tomorrow, the Millennium Bridge across Douglas Harbour will be closed. That's 8 this evening until 4:30 in the morning, both nights, and that's for maintenance of the lift bridge. Over in Onchan, temporary lights on the White Bridge Hill 24 hours a day for water main work. And over in Laxey until the 8th of March, a section of Glen Road will be closed near the football club for ground investigation work. Looking at the steam packet, so far all looking good, no disruption there. At the airport, again, all looking good on the arrivals and departures boards. Of course, if there is something you spot on your travels, please do let us know as long as it's safe to do so. Drop us a message, text 166 177, or you can email studio@manxradio.com.
Quayside Tyres and Service Centre with 1 year's free engine warranty from Castrol. Get more with
16 minutes past 5 now, and commissioners in Peel are inviting residents to have their say about new development on Marine Parade. The local authority is looking to build a cafe and community centre with new public toilets and function rooms. Currently, the site is a tennis court. The commissioners have planning approval in principle to create the facility. Local Democracy reporter Emma Draper has this report.
The commissioners are running public consultation sessions from today until Saturday, 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. each day at the Town Hall for residents to speak to them about the plans. As part of the proposal, there would be a new public toilet facility with outdoor access and would have a cafe with 56 covers inside and 44 outside. There will also be a 2-metre wide ramp for wheelchair access to the building. As part of the consultation, the board will be asking residents to suggest names for the new building, which will have a view of the castle from the cafe. I spoke to Commissioners Alan Jones and Frank Compton about the plans.
The cafe at the Bowling Green had reached the end of its life, so we decided to replace it with a facility that was valuable to the community and not just a cafe. It had a multifunction space as well to be used by other organisations.
And would you be able to explain a little bit about the plans?
Yeah, so what we're going to try and do is incorporate a new building where it's going to be good for families, where you can maybe come down for a coffee, sit in a cafe. It's a little bit long overdue down there because we used to have a lot of kids' entertainment down there, and as Alan has just said, the Bowling Green Cafe needs replacing, so they'll be able to use that likewise, and we're just hoping people will come in and put their suggestions forward as to what they'd like to see down there as well.
This resident said she remembers when there used to be a Lido on the far end of Peel Promenade.
So we lived on Peveril Terrace at the time, so all summer we'd just come down over the headlands and swim in the pool all day. There was a cafe there, so you could get something or bring your packed lunch. I think it would do really well, a cafe.
Peel Commissioners Alan Jones and Frank Crompton there, along with a Peel resident, speaking to Emma Draper about plans for Marine Parade. 18 minutes past 5 now, and a campaigner for dyslexia sufferers on the island has put her name forward for a position on the Legislative Council. Julia Bell describes herself as having integrity and grit and determination. She says she understands entering the upper chamber and making change could be a very time-consuming business.
So one member explained to me that I need to get used to everything being very slow, and when he first joined, he didn't realise how slow it was, and that if I expect to make changes really quickly, then I will be very disappointed. I think I already am aware of that simply because of on the outside trying to push dyslexia through. That's taken me 4 years to get to a stage of having a select committee, and there's still a long way to go with that, because even after the select committee make recommendations, there's no guarantee that there's going to be funding and budget in order to do that. So I think I'm already very aware of how slow that process can be. It's a very different dynamic in terms of an ordinary workplace, where in a workplace maybe it's more cohesive and it feels more of a team, and you would be a team with some aspects when I suppose when you are part of a select committee and being maybe a departmental member when you work as a team.
You do have a leadership role as well. The obvious thing, if you asked the public, do you want the best possible health service, they'll all say yes. Do you you want to pay extra tax? They'll probably say no. Where do you go from there?
You're very right. You know, this goes back to kind of being realistic and what is feasible, and sometimes making those very difficult decisions that won't be popular. For example, a very unpopular opinion and decision would be saying, well, maybe we can manage GP practices a little bit better by making them work more efficiently by, say, charging £10 for an appointment, because that way you're going to reduce DNAs, did not attend appointments, but that wouldn't be popular. I think I'm really passionate. I have a lot of passion and get up and go, and I've got a really strong work ethic. I have shown that I'm able to have lots of different responsibilities all at the same time and be able to do very well with those competing demands. I'm really efficient. I like to get things done efficiently, and that was my reason for doing my postgraduate diploma. I have determination and grit and tenacity and drive, got integrity, and I really like helping people is in my blood.
Prospective MLC Julia Bell speaking there to Manx Radio's political correspondent Phil Gaughan.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
5:20 on the 5th of February now, and the 2025 Douglas Bay Horse Tramway timetable has been published, and there are some changes this year. Lewis Foster has the details.
Among them, a reduced schedule during the TT period. Whereas previously 2 trams would be in service across a number of days during the racing fortnight, this year there will just be the one. Meanwhile, towards the end of the season in October and early November, a shorter timetable will be used, which will see the final tram of the day depart at 3:35 p.m. instead of 5:35. The horse trams will return to Douglas Promenade on Thursday the 3rd of April. Currently, the tramway only runs between Derby Castle and the Villa Marina. The full track, which would run all the way to the sea terminal, is yet to be reinstated following the refurbishment of Douglas Promenade. That's despite funding being granted for that to happen. It remains uncertain whether this administration will finalise those proposals. An extended 2-tram schedule will be held during the peak of the season between the 22nd and 27th of July this year, and each weekend throughout August. You can find a link to this year's timetable at manxradio.com.
Lewis Foster with that report now, and FC Isle of Man's manager has spoken of a mix of pride and frustration after a last-gasp 3-2 defeat at NWCFL Premier Division League leaders Bury last night. Paul Jones spoke to the club's media at Gig Lane after a 94th minute Bury winner meant his team left empty-handed and still 7 points adrift off the playoff places.
Obviously very proud of the players. We've got players playing out of position. When you've got a holding centre midfield partnership of Pinney and Danny Gerrard, who are 2 of our more attacking players, and Sam Blaine's playing at left back. And I thought obviously we were under a bit of pressure first half, but our shape was decent. We defended the areas we knew we needed to defend in the box, and I thought we did well to go a goal up. I'm a little bit frustrated about what happened before their goal that wouldn't have led to them getting a corner. I think there's a clear foul on Sean in the build-up, and then I think there's a clear penalty in the first half that would put us kind of 2-1 or 2-0 at half-time. But that's how it is. I just kind of feel like we're not quite getting the breaks at the moment. I thought the performance was very good in large parts, but we've conceded goals again and late goals, meaning that we don't get points, and that has to stop. And I didn't shout at them because the rest of it was so good, but it's a bittersweet one for me tonight. I thought we were excellent, and we deserved more, and it was within our grasp, and unfortunately we just switched off, and here we are. The lads executed defensive stuff really, really well. Second half, we just spoke about being a little bit deeper to deny some space in behind us and then hit them on the counter, and we had some fantastic opportunities to do that that we didn't quite make the most of. So yeah, the lads executed the game plan really, really well, and as I say, we should really be coming away from Gig Lane with at least a point, but not to be. Sean was incredible to play the full 90 minutes after the injury he's got and how we're trying to protect him, and some of the others were all carrying knocks. Callum Sherry, there's 3 or 4 out there that had knocks, so we'll just have to see how we recover. We've got a really strong group, more than good enough to beat any team in the league, as we have shown, but we just need that little bit more to get over the line, and that's the next step for us.
FC Isle of Man's manager Paul Jones speaking there, and sports editor Rob Pritchard joins us now. Unfortunate news for the Ravens there, but I suppose there is some good news in sport for the island.
There is indeed. Let's take a look at that. We're going to start with cycling tonight. Isle of Man pro cyclist Matthew Bostock looks set to compete at this year's British National Track Championships. The Manx competitor is included on the entry list for the 2025 event, which is due to take place at the National Cycling Centre in Manchester from the 21st to the 23rd of February. He's registered to be racing for Techers CC after reports his previous team, Ribble Rebellion, shut down its Criterium squad at the end of the 2024 season. Well, Bostock will be part of a star-studded lineup, which in the men's races will include 2023 Scratch World Champion Will Tidball, former world record holder Josh Charlton and Olympian Hamish Turnbull. The women's event also looks to boast a high-calibre roster, which includes Olympic champions Katie Archibald, Emma Finucane and Sophie Capewell, as well as Pursuit World Champion Anna Morris. Staying with cycling, and both Lizzie Holden and Becky Storey will not be involved in the latest round of the Women's World Tour this week. Neither Holden nor Storey are included in the lineups for UAE Team ADQ and Team Picnic Post NL, respectively, for this week's UAE Tour. The meeting gets underway tomorrow and runs until Sunday. Well, it would have been an incredibly quick turnaround for the Manx duo because they were both racing in Australia last weekend, competing in the Cadell Evans Road Race. Elsewhere, another island athletics record has been scooped up by endurance competitor Krista Kane. The local athlete set a new benchmark in the 10km road race for the women's 35 age group of 36 minutes 15 seconds during the Victoria Park 10km event in London on Sunday. It eclipses the previous record in that category of 37 minutes 57 seconds set by Sarah Webster back in 2017. And what's more, Kane's performance meant she won the women's V35 category and was the second fastest female overall. Well, Kane's partner and Isle of Man Veteran Athletes Club member Simon Scott was also involved in the meeting, and he won the men's V55 age group with a time of 42 minutes 43 seconds, which was also a personal best over that distance.
Thank you, Rob. Now, I feel like it's becoming a little bit of a tradition where I ask you what your score predictions are. Obviously, FC Isle of Man playing Glossop North End this Saturday. What can you tell us about that?
Well, the two teams only met a few weeks ago as well, right at the start of January. Glossop won 2-0 at the Bowl that day in what was quite an end-to-end game. So very open, I would say. If the first game is anything to go by, we'll have to wait and see. But FC Isle of Man, they'll be desperate to bounce back from the disappointment of last night.
So a score prediction?
That's a tough one to make. I'm going to go 2-2.
Okay, 2-2. Sounds good. Well, that's all from Update this evening. Thanks for joining us. On the way for you this evening, we've got Spotlight with Howard Kane. That's followed by Greatest Hits. Chris Kinley will be keeping you company with those. Then, of course, we've got Ernie Thorne's Eclectic Show. And last but not least, Rhiannon Evans has After Hours. Beth SB will be back with you for tomorrow. So until next time, take care. Bye-bye for now.